there's a strange and worrying bill that's moving its way through the Senate, and that has bipartisan support, Democrats and Republicans. I would imagine many Democrats don't necessarily want its base to know about this bill, but that's more of a reason that it needs to be talked about, the fact that this bill is moving through Congress. What the bill boils down to, at least the provision that we care about, is the anti-BDS portion of the bill. There are other elements of the bill that are somewhat worrying. The $38 billion going to Israel. But the anti-BDS section of the bill is a decapitation of the First Amendment. All of these, small government Republicans, the government is on my back, the government is on my back, it's preventing me from raising a buck. Those guys. But seem to be perfectly okay with pushing through a bill that gives billions of dollars to Israel, but also potentially criminalizes speech, criminalizes free speech. You making a choice saying that country is occupying another country, and in the same way I was against apartheid in South Africa, I am against apartheid in a country that calls itself a quote-unquote Jewish state, and there are other nationalities in the United States which it is brutally repressing. I don't want to be against that. I don't want to support that. I don't want to put my money into that. And the government allows for state and localities to go after you for making a choice about what you want to do with the money or with your business. I find that to be amazing that Republicans are on board for this. I mean, granted, I don't think real Republicans are on board for it. I think corporate Republicans are on board for it. But B, this seems like it will be big of a deal. It looks like it will be more toxic. And by the way, I don't necessarily think it's doing Israel any favors. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, when people look at this, and this is a massive jump of the shark at the behest of another government. I mean, you're telling me that I can't protest what I consider to be brutal repression of another country. Yeah, that's somewhat problematic, and that needs to be pushed back against. I don't necessarily think this is doing favors to any particular cause, seeing that there's going to be a backlash. But hey, what do I know? Let's take a look at this. I'm not going to keep this one long. The U.S. Senate just quietly advanced a free speech busting anti-BDS bill. I like the writing on this one, Al Jazeera, a little bit better. But, well, I like portions of Al Jazeera's one a little bit better. But ultimately, the name of the Senate, just so we're clear, the name of the bill, Strengthening America's Security in the Middle East Act of 2019. And of course, it's never what it actually does. There's always this Orwellian twist where, whatever they call it is doing in some way a depraved opposite. Well, let's start at the beginning. In an evening vote that garnered no national media coverage, the U.S. Senate voted last night to advance the Strengthening American Security in the Middle East Act of 2019, sometimes called the Anti-BDS bill, for its component that would allow state and local governments to punish companies or individuals who support nonviolent boycott, divest, sanctions movement aimed at promoting Palestinian rights and ending Israeli apartheid and military occupation of the West Bank. The bill was notably numbered S.1 for the Senate's first legislative act of its 2019 session. So let's see. The bill was adopted by the Senate in a vote of 74 in favor of 19 against, with 7 abstentions. The bill has previously blocked by Senate Democrats by 54 to 44 as part of their objection to the acting of legislation during the government shutdown. However, many Democratic senators who have previously blocked the bill ultimately voted to support the measure in order to become law. The measure will still need to pass the Democratic-run House of Representatives. However, given the amount of support for the measure among Democrats and the power of the Israel lobby, the bill stands a considerable chance of passing the House. Well, it's not just having to pass the House, it also has to pass the Senate as a bill per se. Yet the most controversial part of the bill by far is the combating. There are multiple parts of the bill. It's not just one thing. It's like multiple things organized into think of multiple bills into one. But the part we're talking about is the anti-BDS part. Yet the most controversial part of the bill is that combating BDS Act of 2019, which will authorize state and local governments to retaliate commercially against entities that support the BDS, such as halting business with or refusing to contact or hire companies or individual citizens I'm reading this extraordinarily poorly. I'm not sure why. I think the letter's small. Yet the most controversial part of the bill is by far the Combating BDS Act of 2019, which will authorize state and local governments to retaliate commercially against entities that support BDS, such as by halting business with or refusing to contract or hire companies or individual citizens who either actively participate in support of the movement. A previous version of the bill included possible jail time as a punishment for supporting a boycott of Israel or Israeli settlements, their violation of international law notwithstanding. So what, they're violating international law? We don't want you to say anything about it, and we don't want you to take your business away from them. That's amazing that you would even put that into law, that you would criminalize somebody doing that, where you would put them in jail for it. That is an amazing jump of the shark. And they keep bringing the bill back over and over and over again. Some have asserted that the current text of the bill would mean that the same retaliatory measures would apply to boycotts targeting any country considered an ally of the United States. Think of the brutal theocracy in Saudi Arabia, that you say you don't want to do something that supports the government and the United States retaliates. This is an amazing jump of the shark, and the precedent that this set is worrying, to say the least. Here is, let's see, Al Jazeera's part. All right. The legalization includes provisions to impose new sanctions on Syria, guarantee security assistance to Israel and Jordan. $38 billion. This is amazing. They're seen as efforts to reassure Washington allies worried that the shifts at the U.S. policy since Donald Trump abruptly announced plans last month to quickly withdraw its country's troops from the war-torn Syria. So right here, the measure is still several steps from becoming law and may never get there. Even if it passes the Senate, it must also be approved by the House of Representatives, where Democrats hold a majority of seats. Let's see. I'm seeing if I'm missing anything on this. It was a vote of closure, but the vote of closure was essentially moving it through the Senate. Once it comes up for a real vote in the Senate, we'll know where it's going to go. But the thing is, it also still has to pass the House, and it has to be signed by the president. If you have a Kamala Harris as president, would President Kamala Harris sign this bill? President Kamala Harris voted for this bill. So I don't know why she would somehow change her mind later on. Maybe pressure, whatever. I don't know how you can pressure at the point where she's president. But nevertheless, this bill is moving through the Senate. Be aware, be aware. Do not let them sneak this through. There should be paying for dealing and voting for this bill. I'm putting both of the links at the bottom. Garno. If you support BDS, you might as well have been a guard at a concentration camp, right? Let's make participating in BDS a felony. That's amazing. Like, I mean, I know you're joking, but that's, you know, that's what they're saying. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. And again, bipartisan. This is not one party or the other. This is a bipartisan support. This gives you this idea of support of the Israeli lobby. You know, when people are saying, oh, but Tulsi and those Indians, and it's like, but we have that. It's, you're hitting her for something that we already have take place. And it's not that I want it to take place at all, but it's people pretend as if the influence of the Israeli lobby is somehow, you know, invisible. It's nonsense. This bill literally running roughshod over the First Amendment at the behest of another nation. And you have to ask the question, why on earth are congressmen voting for things that guts rights guaranteed and enshrined within the Constitution itself at the behest of another nation? I don't give a shit who the other nation is. The fact that they're doing it alone is problematic, and they should be called out, read. They should lose their seats over stuff like this. But I'll leave it here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.